All right, I've put up my extended leaf here on the work table. So I've just kind of rolled the sawmill off the end of the rails onto the leaf. I now have enough room that we can use the the bed rail router sled on this new tabletop on the tabletop. So I've got it positioned. I put in some new holes in the saw in the work table to accommodate the clamps. I've got it shimmed at this end just to kind of deal with some of the distortions. You know, like these pieces aren't exactly the same thickness all the way along the length of the board. So I believe we are ready to give this a good planing. So I'm going to set the saw up here set the camera up on the mount and then take a first little skim pass on this piece, and we'll see what we're going to end up with. So I'm going to be using some PPE here. I got a nice respirator and some hearing protection, just because a lot of dust gets kicked up and I don't have my dust collector connected to the sled yet, to the rudder sled. So that's another project in the works. So I'm just going to continue going over the high spots here until I get down to actually cutting some real wood. I'll come back when I'm actually planing more of the surface. So having gone down just 1/8 of an inch, we're now starting to get engagement here, 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 here. So we're kind of starting to cover the whole board now. But I'll keep going. I've got quite a way to go. And I am just going 1/64 of an inch at a time. So slow but sure. You know, if I take a lot off, I've learned in the past that just lets me make mistakes faster. So you can see we're now getting just a little bit farther down. We've got touching here, a little bit here. We're starting to come through here. And we're getting to see some really interesting grain patterns emerge. I like to kind of think of this as kind of tiger coloring in this red oak. It's very interesting marking. Just kind of more traditional red oak. It's a nice long grain. We got a knot here that wasn't visible before. So yeah, some interesting stuff coming through. And we're getting kind of close here. We're probably about 1/16, so another two passes, maybe the third pass, we'll start cutting into this board. Still have a little way to go before we're into this one. There's some distance yet, and some distance over here. So, but again, just going 1/32 of an inch at a time will get us there. So I'll turn you on. You can watch the next couple passes. I'll fast forward through a lot of that, or skip a bunch, but at least you start to see where we're touching down. So bring in for a closer look again. We're now down 1/4 of an inch from where we started, but most of that 1/4 inch was taken up by this centerpiece, which was a pretty high ridge at both ends. So fundamentally, we're down maybe 1/8 of an inch or 3/16 of an inch from where we started on most of these bigger pieces. So, we got full width being covered here. We're nearly at full width on this piece. We're full width here, full width here, full width here, full width here. So we're getting very close to some final cuts, or the final cut on this side. A little shallow on this piece right here, but we'll continue on. Overall, I'm pleased with the progress. I am just moving very slowly. By the way, just what's in the router is just a 3/4 inch bit, 3/4 inches wide. I know that you can get surface bits, but I don't have one. I'm a little reluctant to get one, as I mentioned earlier. Tools that make you work faster like that, for me, just let me make mistakes faster. So I'll go slow and steady. And what I wind up with is a surface that it feels like it came out of the surface planer. So I'm very pleased with the results of what this router sled can do. And I'll just carry on doing what I'm doing. So I'll bring you in when I'm close to finished and show you a little bit as I get on the finished pass. So we are nearly through. We've got this end of the table, this end of the tabletop, almost completely done. Just a little bit in this corner. I'm not really worried about that because that's going to be a round off, a big semicircle here, so we probably won't even be touching that. However, the problem is this piece right in here. I'm still high. The bit is still a little bit high, so coming down another, probably at least a 1/16 of an inch, we may wind up kind of 3/32 at least. Well, I'm going to guess 3/32, but I'm going to put you back on the camera here so you can see me taking off one more slice here, and you can see how close we're getting. And then I'll probably finish up the rest off camera, but we're getting really close here. I just wanted to mention, in addition to my respirator and hearing protection, I also have an air filter running, so a fan blowing air through a filter to try and get rid of some of the loose dust that's flying around. That filter is actually proving to be very effective. Not 100%, but better than nothing for sure. I'll just adjust the blade down and away we go. So on that pass, we are just kissing the wood here and here. So another 30-second probably get us into here, and a 30-second beyond that will probably get us to here, and a 30-second beyond that will probably get us to about here, which may be close enough. So I'm going to finish this piece up off camera. I'll bring you back when I'm all done. So there's our top, or the top piece of the console table. I'm not sure if this is going to be top side or underside, but completely planed down. I'm really happy with the results that the little router sled made on that. I'm just going to try and catch a little bit of glinting from the sun. You can see, if you look carefully, just some little lines where the router had passed, but when you rub your hand over it, you can't even feel that. It'll, of course, take some sanding, but I don't think I could do much better going through a thickness planer or a surface planer. So really, really happy with the results that the router sled gave me on this piece. So I'm ready now to flip it over and we'll do the other side. So I flipped the top over. What a difference in appearance, huh? Ready now to mill this side. This will be the underside, I believe. So I'm expecting high spots right in this area here. There's a little bit of cupping there, so that's going to be high. This center thin piece is high. A little bit of cupping here. So that first pass that I do will just kind of skim off some of this stuff and make sure that I do know where the high points are. And then again, just come down a 32nd of an inch at a time. I'm not expecting to have to make as many passes on this side. The pieces, this was down when I glued it all together, so relatively even as it sat on the table as I was gluing it up. But there still are, with some variations in the wood and twists and cupping and so on. Yeah, definitely some work to do. But we'll get on with that. Well, it didn't take very long to get down to actually cutting the wood. So the second pass, I had this high spot up here, but we're already cutting through most of this piece all the way down to here. That's impressive. We're already under this piece here, and we're already taking a good chunk out of this piece. So yeah, this won't take nearly as much as the other side. So I'm very happy about that. So I finished doing up, routing down the underside of this tabletop. It did a fairly good job. I'm happy with how it's come out. There is a little bit of a low spot here that I'm going to just get rid of with sanding. I don't want to take off another 32nd or even a 16th to get that out with the router. So a little bit of sanding I think will make that okay. This is the underside of the table. I have a little bit of a sap pocket here that I'm going to have to deal with, so I'm going to probably wind up cutting that out, use the router to make a little pocket, and then I'll insert a new block in there and get that cleaned up. Overall, very well. I'm very pleased with it. I wanted to make a little note about a router bit. I replaced the router bit that I was using the other day. It was becoming a little dull, so I went to my local surplus store and picked up a router bit. So what I've got here is it's a 3/4 inch bit with a 1/2 inch shank. I priced this at Lowe's, my local Lowe's store, Rona Plus it's called here. $47 for that bit. I got it for $7.99 at my local surplus store. 40 bucks, $40 difference. And for this kind of wood that I'm doing, which, you can see comes from pallets and stuff and other reclaimed material. So I do a good job of removing all the nails, but occasionally there's a little bit of a wire that's left from a nailer that was used. And these router bits occasionally strike that. So I was fortunate on this piece, I didn't encounter any of that. But why am I going to spend close to 50 bucks, $47 for a router bit? I can essentially get disposable bits for less than 8 bucks. So check your local surplus store. You don't have to buy the most expensive tools to get the job done. So digging out this little pockmark that I had, you can see some very interesting material in there. It looks like it's a bark inclusion. Here's some of the bits that came out. It's interesting how they just kind of grew in successive rings, just kind of a very interesting little pattern there. So what I'm going to do is cut a little strip that'll probably go from about here all the way across here. So I'll route this out and then put a new piece in, just to, that's a little bit of nastiness that we don't want to have in the finished piece. So dealing with this little nasty pocket that I've got, I created a little template here out of a piece of pine. Used a Forstner bit, 35 millimeter Forstner bit to put a hole in each end. Used my little jigsaw to cut out the piece in the middle. And I'm going to use this 1/2 inch template bit, so that'll go down into the pocket. The bearing will follow along the edge here. And I'll just kind of dig that out to get a nice smooth surface on the bottom. Then I can use this template on a new piece of wood to get the exact size, cut that out, slip it in. What could possibly go wrong? So there's my jig all set up, the router sitting in place. This is just a little tiny router, but I'm just going to move around, just nibble away a little bit at it, working my way right through the whole pocket. So that'll take a little bit of time. I'll set you up so you can see that in real time. Or maybe sped up if I'm going slow. So there's the pocket, nicely cut out. Some solid wood in here. Still have a little bit there, so I'm going to put in a little bit of probably some plastic wood or some filler in the bottom of that, just to fill that void. And then we can glue in our little replacement piece. Let me take off the template, you can see it up close. So there's the pocket. That should work out pretty nicely. Now we'll just cut a piece out of some scrap oak that we can set in there, and then we'll get that sanded off flush. So here's the rough blank cut out. So I'm going to come back, take it over my little belt sander, bench sander over there. We'll just kind of fine tune it and get it sitting in there. Sand the whole top down, we'll be good. But right now I'm going to go have a bite of lunch. So I'll be back after that. So there's our plug put in to the sand on the belt sander, benchtop belt sander, and that fits in reasonably well. So we can now just kind of clean that up. We'll glue it in place, and then when you do the rough sand on this surface, we'll bring that right down to where it's supposed to be. So with the tabletop now pretty much done. I think I will actually rough sand this down, take care of this little area in here as well. Yeah, we'll get on with it. So just put in some wood filler into some of the holes that were in the piece. And on one of the legs, a little bit of filler, and I used some CA glue to fill in a knot. I had some pores there, so that'll seal that up. And I've done the other leg as well, so I'm just going to let this sit for a bit. Then I'm going to give it a final sand. Then we'll need to cut to dimension. Sorry, not a final sand, a rough sand. Then we're going to cut to absolute dimensions and do the roundovers on the, or the cut the semicircles on each end of the top here. Get the legs cut to width and length, and figure out some joinery that's going to be required to keep the legs attached to this table and to the stringers that run between the two legs. So give you a little bit more of an idea of how we're doing. Table is upside down on the work table here. So our solid legs are going to be set up sort of like that. I still have to cut the circular end on it and do the roundovers on the legs, of course. I've got the spars that'll run between the two legs. I have to figure out the joinery that's going to happen in here yet. So that's something to be done. And yeah, more sanding, a lot of sanding. One thing with oak is that it's a slow process to go through oak. So I'm happy the bed rail router sled did a really nice job of planing it out even, so it has reduced the amount of sanding that's necessary, but yeah, still a lot of sanding. Okay, so the next step in our table build is cutting this to width. It's got to be 15 inches wide. We're currently sitting at 16 3/8. So that gives me a little bit of room to cut on each side. So I'm going to try and even that up a little bit. But the first pass is just going to be a straight cut just to clean up that edge. This it doesn't match perfectly evenly down here. So I just want to make sure I get a nice clean edge. So probably take 1/4 of an inch off here. And then we'll worry about kind of getting an even amount off each side. So, off to the table saw. Okay, got 16 and a quarter inches wide. That'll just take a little tiny bit off this far side here. I flipped the table up so that the blade is going to be penetrating on the top side, giving a clean edge over here on the top. Clean edge over here on the top, rather. I got the outfeed roller set up. So I think we're set to go. Okay, so I have a nice clean edge over here, which is all I really want now because I want to make a clean edge here. I'm going to take about 1/8 of an inch off this side. And then I'm going to take the majority of the wood off of this edge rather than try and make it even. Initially I was thinking this centerpiece, I wanted to keep that in the center, but it's actually not in the center anyway. And what I have over here, I have this really interesting swirl, and I don't want to lose any of that, one. And two, on the bottom side I had to put in that little patch down here, you can't see very well, but if I cut off too much on that side, not only am I going to encroach on this little interesting swirl, but I'm going to expose that patch on the side edge, and I don't want to do that. I should mention too, yesterday I talked about a router bit that I picked up at at my surplus store, not the dollar store, my little surplus store for $7.99. This 10-inch table saw blade, $13.49. 13 bucks. And again, compare that, you go into a big box store and you're going to pay $70 for a blade. So when I'm dealing with wood that is scrappy wood to begin with, potentially got nails and screws that I can't remove or didn't, fail to remove, I don't mind sacrificing a $13 blade. Okay, let's cut this now to appropriate width. 15 inches. Anybody see the tape measure? Don't know how I do that. Oh, there it is. The dust collector has just been amazing. Very happy to have that as part of the shop. Okay. Okay, now comes the part I've been dreading. That's cutting this into a semicircle here. Don't get a lot of second chances on that cut. So what I'll do is set up a router jig. Just get a little piece of 1/4 inch plywood likely. It's 15 inches across. That means that that's got to be 7.5 inches in radius. I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch bit, so 1/8 of that is 7 5/8. I'm going to add a 1/16 just because. So 7 and 11/16 will be the radius from the center of the board to the center of the router bit. And then I've got to make sure that I get 64, that will be 64 and 1/8 inch end to end, allowing me a little bit of a 1/16 inch of sanding on either end. I may rethink the 1/16 inch, but anyway, got a little bit of work to do before then. So I'll bring you back when I've got the jig ready to go. All right, I have the circle cutting template jig set up. Just took a piece of 1/4 inch MDF, and then I have a template adapter for the router. I have a few of these. So what I was able to do is just kind of put this on the piece, kind of roughly like so, and then I marked the 3 holes where the screws will go in, having those 3 holes marked, and I drew a line between the 3 holes, center to center. Figured out the center line between these 2 points, and from there to there, drew a line. The center point between these 2 was here, a line from there to there, and the center point from here to here, and a line from there to there. And those 3 lines intersect. That is the middle of the triangle. So that's the center. That's where I knew to drill the hole. And that's where I know I need to take the measurement from there back to here, where I drilled a hole. 7 5/8 is the absolute measurement that I want, but I'm going a 1/16 beyond that just to cater for any miscalculation which I may have made along the way. So I drilled a little hole there. We'll put a nail through that into our work table, and that'll give us an exact circumference of a radius rather of 7 11/16 from the center of there to the inside edge of the bit. So I'll put a bit in there, a 1/4" bit. Oh, let's see what happens. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, jig set up in place. The piece is clamped down to the table. I've got the Anaconda set up to hopefully catch a little bit of dust. And we're just going to take a 1/4 inch cut around here. A little bit, maybe a little bit beyond a 1/4 inch, but not much. I've checked to make sure the bit has clearance on both sides, and it does, just by about a 1/16, less than a 1/16 of an inch, which is what I had calculated, so that seems to be okay. So a little bit of hearing protection, the dust collector on, and away we go. Okay, that cut went well. The Anaconda's not collecting a lot of dust. Not surprising, I am quite a ways away from it. I'll just clear out this path here and then we'll come back the other way. Okay, we'll go down, down another 1/4 inch. Let's see what happens. And there we go. We got one end rounded off. There'll be a little bit of cleanup obviously to be done here on top of the sanding. So we managed to come right through a nail hole. I got filler on the top and the bottom, but of course I need filler here on the end. Looks like we have a bit of a crack here to deal with, but apart from that, yeah, that's okay. Scary as all get out to make a major cut like that. All right, we'll set up at the other end and do the same thing down there. All right, so there's both ends done. That came out all right. A little bit of cleanup, of course, here. Yeah, this end came out a little better than I was expecting, actually. So I do have one little bit of nastiness right here where a nail had come through that wood, so there's a little bit of repair work to do there. We're going to do a 1/8 round over on this edge as well. Not the full half, just a 1/8, just to take the sharp corner off this. But I think I'll get to that a little bit later. I want to do a little bit more, take a look at what we've got, see what kind of touch-up needs to be made. So let me get this back over on the work table and we'll have a closer look. And there's our tabletop. Yeah, I'm kind of pleased with that. It's 64 1/8 inches long, so I have some room to sand, which I will need to do because the router did leave some little rough bits on it. So I got some room to sand that smooth. Do a 1/8 round over on the top and the bottom. In the end, at the very ends, I had a little bit of filling to do right in here with a nail hole that I didn't fill first time around. But yeah, that's looking good. So that's the tabletop. I spent some time this morning working on the stringers that are going to run, of course, on the underside of the table, but they'll sit in here kind of like so. We're now working upside down. And sanded off the legs. But what I'm going to do now at this point is cut these legs to width. They need to be 12 inches. And we can also cut them to length, which is going to be whatever it is that gets us a table height of 24 inches. So I was initially thinking it was going to be about 22 3/4, but it's probably going to be closer to 23. But we'll measure those up after we get them cut to width. All right, we're good with that. Now we need to square off one end. So there's the line that I drew, and you can see that I'm getting, just with the miter and careful measurement, or careful pushing through, I'm getting pretty close to that line. So just a little bit of wood on the far side of the pencil line, and just a little bit of wood on the far side of that pencil line. In fact, the pencil line is thinner here than it is down here, so that's a hair. All right, now we'll figure out the exact length, which is going to be 23. I was going to say 23 1/16, but I'm going to make it exactly 23. So we'll line that up and cut that off the same way. So it occurred to me that before I cut these pieces to length, these legs to length, I should run it through the router and get the 1/2 inch round over on these pieces. So I'm going to do that now. Got the bit set up, got the anaconda set up to try and collect some dust. So through one way, flip the piece through the other way, and then do the same on the other side. Then bring the other leg over and do it too. So I'm very pleased with that result. It gives me a nice round over that I'm looking for. I think our customer is going to be happy with that too. Need to do just a little bit of sanding to get rid of a bit of an edge here right along. There's just a little bit of an edge right where the round over met the surface. But that's easy to take care of. Wonderful. Now we can cut them to length. I may vacuum up some of this dust. The Anaconda caught some of it, but clearly not all. So let me get us cleaned up here a little bit. So I'm going to cut these to length, 23 inches. I'm going to creep up on the cut again this time. The reason I want to do that is as I cut, this is a narrow strip and I don't want to get any blade jamming here. So just by cutting this off, I generate just sawdust that's going directly into the saw. I'll make about 4 passes before I make that final cut. The last cut, I had enough material that it was just easy to cut it without any fear of it falling through that gap. Okay, so legs are cut to length. There's a little bit of work to do, kind of finishing them off. However, the next bit, I'm going to take you over to the work table and show you what we're going to do next. So a little bit of mixed feeling on how to handle this, attaching the leg to the top. My thought at the moment is to cut a channel here and here, across here, and then cut a slot in the stringer so that the leg will actually sit down, be embedded in a bridle joint onto the stringer. That's option 1. Option 2 is to cut a dovetail in the stringer and a blind dovetail in the leg, and then have the leg slip into that dovetail. Dovetails scare me a little bit. I haven't done them before. It would give a cleaner look, a little more modern look, I think, than having a bridle joint. So I'm still up in the air on that one. I'll come back when I've come up with a viable alternative. So that's the general look of the table. We now have to think about joining the supports, the stringers that run from leg to leg.